Today we're going to create a photo montage, but not the typical photo montage, because a typical photo montage uses multiple photographs to create one finished piece of artwork. What we're going to do today is we're going to use verbal documentation and visual documentation. We're going to put those together to create our finished photo montage. Now, visual documentation, it's very simple. It's a fancy terminology for a picture, all right, a photograph. Verbal documentation is a piece of writing. And those two together could create some real impactful communication. Now, trick is, we want the verbal documentation, the writing, and the visual documentation, the picture, to have some thematic elements that go together and actually make sense when you combine them. All right, so let's get started and see what we can create. Now, I'm going to use this photograph of a person wearing a mask, kind of the feeling of isolation and wondering what life will be like when this is all over. It's certainly going to be much nicer than it is right now. So we kind of get that feeling in this dramatic picture with this person sitting in front of the window with this strong light source coming in from the outside world. And then here's a letter written right from the heart. Now, there has to be some feeling and emotion when you actually use a piece of writing in your artwork. You want it to be personal. You want it to be from the heart. You want this to have as much of an impact as the picture itself has. This, in combination with the picture, should make something really impactful and dynamic happen when it comes to your finished piece of work. And here's an example of what the finished piece of work is going to be like. So let's go see how we're going to, let's go do this. All right. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take my image and I'm going to drag my image down to my dock. And hopefully, if all went well with our Photoshop being installed on the machines, Photoshop will open. And as you see, it did. Typically, that layers menu will not open and your screen will look like this. All right, so I dragged the picture right down to the dock, right over the Photoshop icon, and it opened up immediately. Now I'm going to open up the layers palette because the layers palette is my blueprint. It tells me exactly what I'm doing, you know, every step of the way. So right here is my background picture. Okay. Next thing I want to do is I'm going to go get my piece of writing. Now, I told you that what I did was with a Sharpie marker, I wrote on a regular old piece of print paper, and I wrote a letter to myself, or I wrote a letter to my picture. And then what I did, instead of just using my camera to take the picture, here's a little tip. I used the scan, the Notes app on my phone, the Notes app. And then when I went to take a picture, because it allows you to take a picture, you'll see there's a camera within the Notes app. It asked me if I wanted to scan my document. And I said, yes, scan the document. Because then it allowed me to unskew my picture. So my perspective looks like it's flat on, it's head on. It's just like if I made a copy of it on a copy machine. All right, so that's a really nice, quick way to make sure that you have your picture and it's not skewed, the perspective is right on. So now what I'm going to do, look at, I'm just sliding this right over my picture. All right, then I can use I should be able to use the shift key to keep this from skewing and scaling. So I'm just I grab the corners, okay, and I should be able to enlarge this, all right, or reduce the size. And I am going to now just set this on this side of my picture. I don't have to use my whole piece of writing, everybody. I might want to do something really dramatic. I might want the words to be really huge in parts. I might want the words to be a little smaller in part. I might actually want to see my whole piece of writing. That's for you to decide. That's your artistic genius at work, all right? So you decide what you want your piece to look like. I'm going to hit the return key. And I'm now setting this into place. Now everybody, look at, here's my layer. It's right on top of my background layer. I wrote this on a white piece of paper. I basically took a picture of this using my Notes app, but I used the scan capability as I told you before. And here is the layer directly over my picture. Now that doesn't look so great right now, but here's where things get really, really neat, okay? I'm going to now use what's called the blend modes. So I've got this layer active. You'll see it's highlighted, all right? And I'm gonna use the blend modes, and this is really neat. As I roll down, you can see the different effects, all right? And it basically takes that white away. Lighten, I don't like that because now it brings the white back here. I'm at overlay now, soft light, hard light, blah, 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 blah. And I'm looking to see what's happening here. Ooh, this almost turns my picture into a negative. Now I'm at subtract and divide. And some neat things are starting to happen. But I kind of like what was happening right at the very beginning. Darken, multiply. I'm looking, color burn. I'm choosing darker color. I kind of like, let's see, but I lose. Now I'm looking to see what's happening in the hair over here. All right, so I think I might pick the multiply, but then I see that there's a dark line right here, and I know what that's from. That was from my scan. And I also know that I want to maybe change the opacity of my layer to make that a little bit lighter. All right, so I'm going to reduce the opacity, all right, and hope that I get a more interesting effect when it comes to a lighter opacity. All right, so then I'm going to put a mask into the layer, all right, and now the mask allows me to add a portion to my picture, or to take a portion of my picture away. So if I have the brush in my hand and I've highlighted the mask, now the mask is active. In the mask mode, if I use the brush with the black and the white on my keyboard, the black will take away, okay, a part of my picture. Watch, look it, see the words disappear here? All right. Now it's not like erasing it. It's much more valuable than erasing it, because what I can do is I can flip-flop back over here. I can put the white back, and then I can actually bring that back. All right. So if I decide I don't like what I did, I can actually bring that back. So you see this black line right here? I don't like that. So I'm going to flip-flop to the black. So I'm in the mask mode. I have the brush tool in my hand, and I have the black in my hand. So I am going to take that away. Then, you know what, everybody? I'm going to take the words out of the mask. I'm going to take the words out of the mask. I don't want them in here right now. I want to do something different in there, I think. So I'm going to sort of make it look like, all right, this is in the background. All right, so here is the layer of words, and I'm going to reduce that even more. I'm going to reduce the opacity so it gives it a little bit more mystery. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back. I'm going to bring that document in again. Okay, and let me actually take the document. All right, and I'm going to do something really neat right now. Okay, I'm going to do something really neat. I am going to hit the return key and kind of set that into place. And now I've got this random layer right here. Now, this little box, I don't know if you can see it to the bottom right of the icon here in the layer, that represents that it changed this PDF into a smart object. And smart objects are like little pictures. So it's not text anymore. I can't double click on it and all of a sudden change the text here. Look, as a matter of fact, the PDF opened. All right. It is not text anymore. It's now considered a picture. But what I can do is really a really neat thing. First thing I want to do is I'm going to go back through my blend modes and let me see if I like the way something looks. All right, when I scroll through my blend modes. Going down. Divide. This looks neat. It turned my text white instead of it being black, and I kind of like the way that's looking. So I'm going to click divide, and I'm going to keep this little section. All right, I'm going to keep this white as opposed to the black. I think that's neat. But you know what would be even more interesting? The mask has some dimension. I wonder if I can create a little dimension, make my text a little wavier. And I think what I can do is I can go up to where it says edit, and I'm gonna use this puppet warp feature. You're gonna think this is so fun. I'm gonna click puppet warp. And all of a sudden, this massive, complex grid system opens up over my text. And I have this thing in my hand that looks like a little thumbtack. So that's called a pin. I'm going to pin, and where I pin, I'm going to pin this into place in a couple of spots. Okay. All right. Now what I can do is, if I hover over the pin, it allows me to move. It says I'm too close to another pin because I have a pin right here. I already put one there. It allows me to move the pin in different directions, okay? Which is really quite cool. This is called the puppet warp feature, all right? And this is a really fun thing to be able to kind of play around with. It's a little finicky because it will not allow me to place pins too close to one another because then it doesn't work quite right. All right, but you see I'm sort of playing around here, and some of the words get distorted, but that's okay. And again, I'm not even necessarily sure if I want, you know, all these words, okay, on the page. All right, so that's how you use the puppet warp feature. Again, you might think that's kind of a fun thing to do. So I'm going to hit the return key, all right, and just put that into place. I see that I have a word that's going over my mask. I don't like that. So I'm going to see if I can maybe move this over a tad. Okay. And I might even take the opacity down a little bit, all right, to make that kind of fade into the background a little. All right, so you see where we're going with this. Now I can always go back and change things. As a matter of fact, maybe what I should do is maybe I should go into this mask because the words are going over into his face a little. I might like that. I might not like it. But let me go into the mask. Let me use the brush. And I have black on my brush. And I'm going in and I'm taking some of the words out here. So the words are only sort of in the background. Okay. Now, how about we do it one more time? How about we bring in the scan document again? All right, and let's right now place it over, maybe on the left side of his face. Now you don't have to overdo. I'm just I'm doing this for example, and mine is looking kind of interesting, so I'm continuing to go with it. All right, let's go back to the blend modes and let's see what happens now. This side of his head is much darker than the other side. The other side was white. So as I scroll down, different things might happen, all right, with the blend modes. So this is pretty cool. All right, like the overlay feature, the hard light, the pin light. Now that brings the white all back. This is too much, I think. All right, with it being white on top of that black. I kind of like the look of it right up here with the soft light and the overlay. I just kind of have to, I'm gonna choose the soft light, and then I'm gonna put a mask into this layer, okay? Because see this hard edge right here? I don't love that. So what should I do? Go grab my brush tool. Maybe I'll take the opacity and the flow down a little bit, kind of makes my brush a little bit airier, not as heavy. I've got black on my brush. I'm in the mask mode, and then look it. I'm going to blend this together a little bit nicer. Okay. Like that. All right. And I'm going to be sure that I don't have that rough edge anymore. All right. This is a little bit, I want to bring a little bit of the darkness back maybe in this section right here where his eye is. So I'm using this almost as a brush, a blending. I'm just kind of blending right here because I like that. All right. And I have something really interesting starting to happen here. Now, if I decide I went too far and I want those words to come back, I then look at flip-flop to the white on my toolbar, which this is great. I didn't erase it all the way. I'm gonna heal my mask back up. Maybe bring those words back because I decided that they were kind of critical. They were important to my picture. Now I went a little too far, but let me erase that. And there you have it. All right, so I created a photo montage combining visual documentation and verbal documentation. Both of the elements really combine nicely. There's a thematic element here. We're talking about the restrictions during COVID, the isolation. I believe that this has some nice impact. It really is interesting to look at. It's interesting to read. And hopefully you can create something that provides a really dynamic visual communication through use of photograph and the written word. So go, have fun, try it out yourself. Last step to this is I'm going to file, save as. I'm going to be sure to always save it as a Photoshop document first. All right, so I always have the original. I'm going to save this as Mask Portrait 3. I'm going to save this as a JPEG. It'll be saved to my desktop as the largest file. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to exit out of Photoshop right here. And my Mask Portrait 3 should be there waiting. Okay, and there you have it.